Okay, Module 1 overview. So for Module 1, basically what this module involves is it's an overview of the accounting systems and the types of accounting. So there's 3 types of accounting specialties. There's financial accounting, which focuses on preparing your external financial statements, your financial reports. Then there's managerial accounting. So with managerial accounting, they would have an internal focus. So this involves your budget versus actual reports, for example. So these sorts of statements are used internally to help management determine whether or not the organization is on track to achieving its budget, if there's any issues, and they want, of course, to know if there's any issues so they can address them early in the year. And finally, there's taxation, which is, again, pretty much a specialty within the accounting area. So the module identifies the various organizations that are involved in setting accounting standards. So each country has accounting standards, and they're fairly similar from one country to another. And there's also, of course, international standards, and we'll get into that a bit later. So the textbook is primarily focused on United States accounting standards. And so because of that, then I've provided some additional notes to show you how things are handled in other jurisdictions. In addition, this module looks at the various business structures. So if anybody's ever taken Introduction to Business, you're told that there's 3 types of business structures. There's a sole proprietorship, the partnership, and the corporation. And in a lot of introductory first-year business courses for undergrad, you don't really get into the fact that, there's many other types of accounting or types of business organizations, the not-for-profit, the public sector, social enterprises, cooperatives, hybrid-type organizations that are perhaps a not-for-profit and a cooperative, and so on. So this module will create some more awareness about the different types of business organizations that exist. So a fairly large part of the module involves looking at the accounting standards and guidelines. So there's accounting standards for the not-for-profit sector, for the public sector. There's accounting standards for private enterprise. In the U.S., we have GAAP, Generally Accepted Accounting Principles, and then there's International Financial Reporting Standards, IFRS. Some people call it IFRS for short, so IFRS. And then there's also guidelines. So guidelines are often statements of recommended practice. So the types of standards adopted by cooperatives depends very much on the type of business that you're in and the country where the co-op is located. So in Canada, for example, if you're a credit union, you have to adhere to IFRS. The reason for that is any organization that's deemed to be publicly accountable, they have to use IFRS. So publicly accountable, you hold funds on behalf of others. So credit unions, banks, and so on, insurance companies, they would all have to adhere to IFRS. So IFRS, the whole idea behind those standards, and they're a fairly recent addition within the last decade, is to make organizations more comparable on a global basis. So if you were looking at an insurance company in Canada and an insurance company in Switzerland, they would be using the same basis of accounting, IFRS. So the idea here is if you're going to the capital markets to raise funds, then people in other countries can see that you're all adhering to the same accounting standards. So as you know, with cooperatives and credit unions, you're typically not involved in raising funds in capital markets, but we're caught up in this definition of being publicly accountable, so you have to adopt IFRS if it applies to your particular cooperative. So I will leave you to read the lecture notes and the various readings for this module, and that concludes my remarks on Module 1.